Beneath the surface, the Mumbai skyline glittered through the glass walls of Prisha Sharma's office. At 35, she had established herself as one of the city's most innovative architects, her designs blending functionality with sustainable elements that had earned her both acclaim and respect. She traced her finger along the blueprint spread before her, but her mind wandered elsewhere. "Mrs. Sharma, your husband is here," her assistant announced from the doorway. Prisha's shoulders tensed slightly. "Thank you, Divya. Send him in." Vikram. Sharma entered with the confidence of a man accustomed to commanding attention. His tailored suit and perfectly groomed appearance reflected his success as the owner of a tech consulting firm. At 38, he carried himself with an air of authority that had once attracted Prisha, but now often felt suffocating. "I thought we could have lunch," he said, placing a takeout bag on her desk. "You've been working late all week." The gesture would seem thoughtful to anyone observing, but Prisha recognized the underlying scrutiny. Their 8 years of marriage had slowly transformed from passionate partnership to a carefully choreographed performance. "I've been finalizing the eco-housing project," she explained, clearing space for their meal. "The presentation is tomorrow." They ate in relative silence, the unspoken tension hovering between them like a persistent cloud. It had been 6 years since they began trying to conceive, 4 years since their first fertility consultation, and 2 years since the specialists had labeled their case as unexplained infertility. "My mother called this morning," Vikram finally said, his tone casual but loaded. "She wanted to know if we'd considered visiting that temple in Rajasthan. Apparently her friend's daughter went there, and now she's expecting twins." Prisha set down her fork. "We've discussed this, Vikram. I'm following Dr. Samir's treatment plan." "And how's that working out for us?" The edge in his voice was razor sharp. Before she could respond, his phone rang. He answered immediately, his voice shifting to a warm, enthusiastic tone as he spoke with a client. Prisha used the interruption to gather herself, a skill she had perfected over recent years. Later that evening, at his parents' home for their monthly dinner, Prisha sat quietly as conversation flowed around her. Vikram's mother, Savita, dominated the discussion with stories of relatives and their growing families. "Neha's daughter just had her second baby," Savita announced, glancing pointedly at Prisha. "A beautiful boy. That makes 5 grandchildren for her." "Some women are just blessed that way," added Vikram's aunt with a sympathetic look toward Prisha. Prisha felt Vikram's hand tighten around hers beneath the table, not in solidarity but in warning. His smile remained fixed, but his eyes had hardened. "Perhaps if Prisha focused more on building a family than on building skyscrapers," he said with a laugh that didn't reach his eyes, "we might have some good news to share too." The table fell, silent. In 8 years of marriage, through all the painful procedures and disappointments, Vikram had never publicly placed blame on her. The boundary had been crossed. At home, behind closed doors, the tension erupted. "How could you say that?" Prisha's voice trembled with anger and hurt. "You know what the doctors said? It could be either of us or neither." "I know what they say, to make you feel better," Vikram retorted. "But let's be realistic. Men in my family have never had trouble having children. So it must be me? Is that it?" Tears threatened, but she refused to let them fall. "I didn't want to say this," he continued, loosening his tie. "But my cousin's wife suggested surrogacy. At least then we'd know the problem isn't with my—" "Stop!" Prisha raised her hand. "Just stop right there." Something fundamental had shifted. The subtle blame had become explicit accusation. The partnership had disintegrated into opposition. As she looked at her husband, this man she had once loved with complete trust, Prisha realized they were standing on opposite sides of a widening chasm. That night, lying beside him yet feeling miles apart, Prisha stared at the ceiling and wondered how much more she could bend before breaking entirely. Shattered reflections. The invitation to Vikram's company anniversary gala sat on their kitchen counter for days, a glossy reminder of the public performance they would soon need to deliver. Prisha had designed the very building where the event would be held, an irony not lost on her as she slipped into an emerald silk sari, carefully concealing the hormone injection bruises on her abdomen. "You look beautiful," Vikram said, adjusting his cufflinks in the mirror, though perhaps something a bit more traditional would have been appropriate for meeting the investors. Prisha met his gaze in the reflection. "This is my design, my fabric, choice. I'll wear what makes me feel confident." A flash of irritation crossed his face, quickly masked by a practiced smile. "Of course, darling. I just want you to make the right impression." The ballroom buzzed with Mumbai's elite, business magnates, politicians, and celebrities mingling under crystal chandeliers. Prisha moved through the crowd with practiced ease, accepting compliments on the building's innovative design while Vikram worked the room, his arm possessively around her waist when introducing her to important contacts. "Ah, the Malhotras!" Vikram exclaimed, steering Prisha toward a distinguished older couple. "Prisha, this is Rajiv Malhotra, potential investor, and his wife Kiran." "Lovely to meet you," Prisha said warmly. "I believe I worked with your daughter on the waterfront development last year." "Yes, Anjali speaks highly of your work," Kiran replied. "She just had her third child, you know, a beautiful baby girl." "Do you and Vikram have children?" The innocent question landed like a physical blow. Before Prisha could formulate a response, Vikram laughed, the sound hollow to her ears. "Not yet, though not for lack of trying." His voice carried just enough to draw attention from nearby guests. "Prisha's career has always come first. Perhaps too much so." Kiran's expression shifted to discomfort as Vikram continued. "You know how it is with these modern women. By the time they're ready for children, their bodies have other ideas." He squeezed Prisha's shoulder in a gesture that appeared affectionate but felt like restraint. "Tick-tock, right, darling?" Conversations around them quieted. Prisha felt heat rising to her face, humiliation burning through her veins. 8 years of painful treatments, midnight tears, and silent grief reduced to a cruel joke for business. Connections. "Excuse me," she managed, extracting herself from his grip. "I need some air." On the balcony overlooking the city lights, Prisha's childhood friend Mira found her, hands gripping the railing so tightly her knuckles had turned white. "I saw what happened," Mira said quietly, standing beside her. "Are you okay?" "No," Prisha whispered, the simple truth liberating after years of pretending. "I'm really not." "How long has he been like this?" "It's been building. The comments, the blame. But tonight..." Prisha looked up at the stars, barely visible through Mumbai's light pollution. "Tonight, something broke for good. When Vikram found them 30 minutes later, his charm had deteriorated with each whiskey." "There you are," he slurred slightly. "The Malhotra were asking about your fertility regimen. I told them you're practically a walking pharmacy these days." He laughed at his own joke. "Maybe we should display your medication collection. Might impress the pharmaceutical investors." Mira stepped forward protectively. "That's enough, Vikram. Stay out of this," he snapped. "This is between me and my defective wife." The word hung in the air between them. Defective. Something crystallized in Prisha at that moment, a clarity that had been forming for months beneath the surface of her pain. With steady hands, she removed the diamond necklace he had given her earlier that evening, placing it in his palm. "I've scheduled appointments, taken injections, altered my diet, practiced yoga, visited temples, and endured your family's scrutiny," she said, her voice surprisingly calm. "I've done everything except blame you, which would have been just as unfair as what you've done to me. I won't do this anymore." "You're making a scene," Vikram hissed, glancing around. We'll discuss this at home. There's nothing left to discuss. Prisha stepped back. I'll be staying with Mira tonight. Tomorrow I'll send someone for my things. His face darkened. You're overreacting. Think about your reputation, your career. My reputation? She gave a small, sad smile. My reputation is built on creating spaces where people feel safe, valued, and whole. I deserve to live in such a space, too. As she walked away, Vikram called after her, loud enough for others to hear, "Good luck finding someone else willing to take on a 35-year-old woman who can't even fulfill her basic biological function." Prisha didn't turn back. For the first time in years, despite the pain and public humiliation, she felt something unexpected: relief. Seeds of Hope, Prisha's new apartment, overlooked a small neighborhood park. Each morning, she watched children play while sipping her tea, their laughter drifting up to her balcony. Once, such observations had been exercises in torture. Now, 6 months after leaving Vikram, she found herself smiling at their antics, the ache in her heart transforming into something gentler. The divorce proceedings had been swift but brutal. Vikram, furious at being left, had attempted to claim partial ownership of her architectural firm. When that failed, he spread rumors in their social circle about her instability and obsession with having a child. Some mutual friends had distanced themselves, uncomfortable with choosing sides. Others, like Mira, had remained steadfast. "Dr. Samir's office confirmed your appointment for tomorrow," Mira said, bringing lunch to the dining table where Prisha was sketching designs. "Are you sure you want to go alone? I can reschedule my client meeting." Prisha looked up from her work. "I need to do this myself. It's been almost 2 years since my last consultation." "Are you still thinking about—" Mira left the question unfinished. "Having a child on my own?" Prisha set down her pencil. "Yes, every day." The fertility clinic had changed little since her last visit. The same soothing blue walls, quiet waiting room, and gentle-voiced receptionist. Yet Prisha felt transformed sitting there, no longer half of a struggling couple, but a woman making choices for herself, alone. "Prisha," Dr. Samir greeted her warmly, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners. At 42, he had guided countless patients through the emotional labyrinth of fertility treatments. "It's good to see you again. I was sorry to hear about your divorce." "Thank you." She settled into the chair across from his desk. "I needed a fresh start." He reviewed her medical history thoughtfully. "Your previous tests showed no physical barriers to conception. Have you been experiencing any new symptoms?" "Just the weight of freedom," she replied with a small smile. "And significantly less stress." Dr. Samir nodded. "That shouldn't be underestimated. Research increasingly shows that prolonged psychological stress can impact fertility in both men and women." He leaned forward slightly. "Would you be open to running a new panel of tests? Medical science evolves quickly." 2 weeks later, Prisha returned to discuss her results, heart pounding as she entered his office. "Your hormone levels have improved significantly," Dr. Samir explained, displaying comparative charts. "Cortisol, in particular, has normalized. This suggests your body may be more receptive to conception now." Hope, that dangerous, persistent emotion, flickered in Prisha's chest. "What does that mean for my options?" "It means several paths are available to you." He outlined possibilities: continued fertility treatments with donor sperm, traditional adoption, or embryo adoption. That evening, Prisha sat on her balcony watching the sunset paint Mumbai's skyline in amber and gold. Her phone buzzed with a message from Vikram, the first in months. "Heard you're seeing Dr. Samir again. Found someone willing to take damaged goods?" She deleted it without responding, refusing to let his bitterness contaminate her newfound peace. Over the following weeks, Prisha researched her options meticulously, approaching motherhood with the same thorough consideration she gave her architectural projects. She joined support groups for single women pursuing parenthood, finding unexpected community in their shared journeys. "I've decided," she told Mira over dinner 3 months later, "I'm going forward with donor insemination. I've selected a donor whose medical history, educational background, and values align with what I'd want for my child." Mira reached across the table to squeeze her hand. "Are you scared?" "Terrified," Prisha admitted. "But I've designed my life around creating spaces for others. Now I'm creating space for this child I haven't met yet, this person who will exist because I chose them, not because society expected it or a husband demanded it." The procedure itself was anticlimactic, clinical, brief, and followed by 2 weeks of agonizing waiting. Prisha threw herself into her work, finalizing designs for a women's community center, occasionally touching her abdomen and wondering. When she returned to Dr. Samir's office for the results, she went alone, having learned that some journeys required solitary courage. "Congratulations, Prisha," he said, his smile breaking through his professional demeanor. "You're pregnant." She pressed a hand to her mouth, tears finally breaking free after years of restraint. These weren't tears of relief or desperation, but of pure, uncomplicated joy. That night, she stood in the empty second bedroom of her apartment, envisioning its transformation into a nursery. No longer a space of absence and longing, but of anticipation. "And love, hello," she whispered to the barely there presence within her. "I've waited so long to meet you." Blossoming paths dawn light filtered through the nursery curtains, casting gentle patterns across the sleeping face of Prisha's daughter. At 4 months old, Adira Sharma was a study in perfect contradictions, strong-willed, yet sweet-natured, serious-eyed, yet quick to smile. Her name, meaning strong in Sanskrit, had been Prisha's declaration of intent for both of them. "We should get ready," Prisha whispered, stroking Adira's cheek. "The world is waiting to meet you properly." Today marked the opening ceremony for Prisha's most personal project yet, an inclusive community center designed specifically for single parents and their children. The building incorporated playground spaces visible from work areas, affordable childcare facilities, and community kitchens where families could share meals and support. As she dressed Adira in a tiny embroidered outfit, Prisha's phone rang. Her mother's name flashed on the screen. "We're just leaving for the ceremony," Prisha answered. "Is everything okay?" "Yes, Beta, but I thought you should know." Her mother hesitated. "Vikram got married last month, to Neha Kapoor. It was in the society pages yesterday." Prisha absorbed this information with surprising equanimity. "I hope they're happy," she said, meaning it sincerely. "Will you and Papa still come today?" "Of course. We wouldn't miss our granddaughter's first public appearance." Across the city, in a luxurious apartment overlooking the Arabian Sea, Vikram Sharma paced the length of his bedroom, phone pressed to his ear. "What do you mean, not promising?" he demanded. "We've been to 3 specialists already." His new wife, Neha, entered with coffee, her expression tightening at his tone. At 32, she came from a prominent business family. Their marriage, more merger than romance, though both had convinced themselves otherwise. "Fine. Schedule the additional tests," Vikram concluded, ending the call abruptly. "Another appointment?" Neha asked carefully. "Dr. Patel wants to run more comprehensive fertility tests. On me this time." The admission cost him visibly. "Apparently, my previous results were inconclusive." "It's only been 6 months, Vikram. We have time." His laugh held no humor. "That's not what your father said at dinner last week." "The Sharma line needs heirs, remember?" Neha set down his coffee cup harder than necessary. "And I suppose that's my responsibility too?" The echo of his first marriage hung between them, though neither acknowledged it. Later that morning, scrolling through business news on his tablet, Vikram froze at a headline. Architectural visionary Prisha Sharma opens groundbreaking community. Center for single parents. The accompanying photo showed Prisha cutting a ribbon, a baby carrier strapped to her chest. "What is it?" Neha asked, noting his expression. He thrust the tablet toward her. "My ex-wife, apparently with a child." Neha studied the image. "She looks happy?" After a pause, she added quietly, "And the timing suggests she got pregnant soon after your divorce." The implication hung in the air, poisonous and persistent. At the community center, Prisha moved through the crowds accepting congratulations, Adira contentedly observing the excitement from her carrier. The building had already received architectural awards for its innovative approach to combining functional workspaces with family-friendly elements. "This is extraordinary," said Arav Dhawan, a prominent sustainable development investor. At 45, he had collaborated with Prisha on several projects, their professional relationship evolving into respectful friendship. "You've created something truly revolutionary here." "It's personal," Prisha explained, adjusting Adira's hat. "When I decided to become a single mother, I realized how few spaces are designed with us in mind. Buildings reflect societal assumptions about family structures." Arav nodded thoughtfully. "And your daughter? She inspired all this?" "She gave me courage to build it," Prisha corrected gently. "But I think I always saw the need." As evening approached, with most guests departed, Prisha sat in the community garden with her parents and Meera, watching Adira sleep peacefully in her grandmother's arms. "I heard about Vikram's marriage," Meera mentioned cautiously. "I know," Prisha smiled. "And genuinely, I wish them well. He wanted a traditional family. Maybe he'll find happiness there." "And you?" her father asked. "Are you happy, Beta?" Prisha looked around at the space she had created, at her healthy daughter, supportive family, thriving career, and the community forming around her alternative path to motherhood. "I'm more than happy, Papa," she answered truthfully. "I'm whole." As that twilight settled over Mumbai, neither Prisha nor Vikram could have anticipated how soon their separate worlds would collide again, or the final reckoning that awaited them. Full circle. 18 months had transformed Adira from an infant into a determined toddler whose vocabulary expanded daily and whose curiosity knew no bounds. Her dark curls and intelligent eyes drew comments from strangers about her resemblance. To Prisha, observations that always produced a private smile. "Mama, look!" Adira pointed excitedly at colorful displays as Prisha guided her through the children's science exhibition at the National Museum. Saturday mornings had become their special time for educational adventures, feeding both Adira's developing mind and Prisha's joy in witnessing her daughter's discoveries. They were examining an interactive display about butterflies when Prisha heard a familiar voice that instantly tightened her shoulders. "I didn't expect to see you here." She turned slowly to face Vikram. He looked older somehow, strain evident around his eyes despite his expensive haircut and designer clothes. Beside him stood a woman Prisha recognized from photographs as Neha, her expression a careful mask of politeness. "Vikram," Prisha acknowledged with a calm nod. "Neha, nice to meet you." Adira tugged at her hand. "Mama, butterfly moving!" 3 pairs of eyes shifted to the child. Vikram's widened noticeably, calculations visibly running behind them as he took in Adira's age. "Your daughter?" he asked, his voice unnaturally controlled. "Yes, this is Adira." Prisha placed a protective hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Adira, say hello." "Hello?" the toddler offered cheerfully before returning her attention to the exhibit. An awkward silence descended, broken when Neha murmured something about finding the restroom and walked away, the tension clearly too uncomfortable to bear. "She must be what, almost 2?" Vikram asked, his tone deceptively casual. 22 months, Prisha confirmed, meeting his gaze steadily. His jaw tightened. "Interesting timing." "Vikram, Were you already pregnant when you left? He demanded, lowering his voice but unable to mask his intensity. Is she mine? The audacity of the question, after everything, momentarily stunned Prisha. Then, looking at her beautiful daughter happily absorbed in learning about metamorphosis, a strange calm settled over her. No, Vikram, she's not yours. She's mine. His face flushed. You know what I'm asking. Did you conceive before our divorce? I conceived exactly when I chose to, Prisha replied evenly. With a donor who offered what I needed, genetic material, without judgment or cruelty. Vikram recoiled slightly, processing her words. A donor? You went to a sperm bank? I made the decision to become a mother on my terms, yes. He gave a short, bitter laugh. So all those years, all those treatments, were real and painful and ultimately unnecessary, Prisha finished for him. Dr. Samir discovered that my fertility issues were largely stress-induced, specifically the stress of being made to feel defective and inadequate by my husband and his family. The color drained from Vikram's face. That's impossible. Is it? Prisha raised an eyebrow. How are things going with you and Neha? Any success on the family front? His expression answered before he could formulate words. You're blaming me for your current situation too, he finally managed. No, Prisha said softly. I'm suggesting you look more carefully at the common denominator in these situations. Have you been tested thoroughly yourself? The truth flickered across his features. Shame, denial, anger. Mama, up please, Adira interrupted, arms raised. Prisha lifted her daughter, who immediately began explaining the butterfly pictures, in her toddler language. Watching them, something crumbled in Vikram's carefully constructed facade. They found abnormalities, he admitted almost inaudibly. In my sperm motility, treatable but... He trailed off, unable to complete the confession. I'm sorry to hear that, Prisha said genuinely. I hope your treatments are successful. Neha returned, assessing the tension between them. We should probably move on to the next exhibit, she suggested to Vikram, her hand finding his arm in what appeared to be a practiced gesture of support. As they prepared to walk away, Vikram turned back. You seem... good, he said, the words clearly difficult for him. I am good, Prisha confirmed. Building a family doesn't always follow traditional blueprints, Vikram. Sometimes we need to create our own designs. She watched them disappear into the crowd, Vikram's shoulders hunched slightly forward, Neha maintaining a careful distance between them. The encounter left Prisha not with satisfaction or vindication, but with a profound sense of closure. More butterflies, Mama? Adira asked, oblivious to the significance of the moment. Prisha kissed her daughter's forehead. Yes, my love. More. Butterflies, more adventures, more life, exactly as we choose to create it. Outside, the Mumbai afternoon sun illuminated the museum steps where families of all configurations gathered. Single parents, grandparents with grandchildren, traditional and non-traditional units bound by love rather than convention. Prisha had once felt excluded from this tapestry. Now she recognized herself as an essential thread within it, strong, vibrant, and precisely where she belonged.